What's up guys, Kyle here again, and it is time for yet another FAQ'N Friday. I didn't even realize it last week, but I did 2 viewers comments episodes in a row, so it's about time that I answered some of your guys' questions. Let's do it! Jason Sapp asks, "Hey Kyle, what channels do you watch on YouTube? Who do you think is a good content creator? I've been watching Tricro Studios. Do you watch that one? Ryan has some good chops, guitars, and amps." Thank you for your question, man. And yeah, I watch all sorts of stuff on YouTube. Like, I'm the type of person that needs constant stimulation, audio or visual. So when I am like setting up for my videos or when I'm trying to basically pass the time doing like mindless chores, I always have an earbud in or I have my iPad on playing some sort of content on YouTube because that is generally what I am watching. So lately I have been watching a lot of stuff regarding mixing because I am just getting into the mixing side of things. So I've been watching a lot of the Joey Sturgis channel because they have some good stripped down basic mixing tips that I have already kind of benefited from. And then on top of that, there are like the classic YouTube guitar content creator channels that I love to watch. Number 1 being my man Fluff. I always watch Fluff stuff when that comes out. Also a big fan of Ola, of course. Every Ola video that drops, I usually watch that one the day that it comes out. Those guys are pretty much the OGs at this point, and I really like their content. I always have and respect those guys. But yeah, as far as other guitar related content, my friend Stay Metal Ray, I watch his stuff. My buddy Jamie Slays, I'm always watching his videos as well. As far as people that I haven't mentioned, Tricro Studios, I've seen a couple of their videos and I definitely dig them. They do a lot of similar content to what I do, where they compare amps and stuff like that, shoot out common amps to see the differences, so of course I dig stuff like that. On the drum side of things, I'm really into David R's channel. I think that his channel is awesome, and I remember watching him when he had 30 or 40,000 subscribers when I was getting back into drums late 2017, and thought that his channel was really interesting because basically he would just do all sorts of crazy DIY drum projects, take cheap drum sets and make them sound good, and that's, you know, that's the type of stuff that I'm into. He was also a big deal hunter when it came to drums, or he is. I don't know why I'm talking past tense, but yeah, love David R's channel to death. I watched pretty much every one of his videos that I had already seen over again when I got back into drums a couple months ago here, and I always found his channel really entertaining. But yeah, I think that pretty much does it for like music related content. For non-music related content, I watch a lot of historical stuff. I watch a lot of documentaries, specifically around like World War II and the Cold War. I know that's probably not exciting for you guys, but I've always really been into history, and I always thought that that was a really just fascinating point in history, so I'm constantly watching documentaries around that era. And then recently I found this channel called Dark 5, and the content on that channel consists of a list. Every video is a list of 5 things around a certain topic, and it's like 5 of the worst nuclear explosions in history, 5 of the creepiest coincidences in history, stuff like that. It sounds really dumb the way I'm explaining it, but they're really interesting. So check that out if you're into stuff like that. I'm into dark, weird, creepy things because I'm a weird, creepy person. But yeah, that pretty much sums up the gist of what I like to watch on YouTube in my free time. I'm gonna interject real quick here, and usually I mention this at the beginning of the video, but I forgot until just now. I currently, guys, am running a massive guitar gear purge. I am selling probably 25 guitars and somewhere around 25 amps or so. I'm also selling a few pedals. I'm selling some recording interfaces. I'm basically just letting go of a lot of the stuff that has been sitting here because I am trying to invest in more studio gear and in some different amps for the channel, because there's some stuff out there that you guys have been requesting, and there are some amps that I really want to get my hands on as well. The Driftwood Purple Nightmare being one of those. I would also love to grab an Omega Obsidian, among many other things. So I'm just trying to clear out the stuff that I haven't really been touching or playing all that much, and using that money to fund new stuff for the channel. So once this video goes live, I'm going to put an updated post in the community section of my YouTube page. So go over there if you want to see what is for sale. Please email me if you have any inquiries. Do not comment on the thread with questions. You guys can leave comments, but if you have genuine questions or you're genuinely interested in anything that's on the list, go ahead and shoot me an email at spawnquickrod@gmail.com, and I will be sure to get back to you guys. I already sold a bunch of items from the last time that I posted it on my YouTube community page, so it seems to be working out well. But yeah, keep an eye out for that if you are in the market for guitars, amps, pedals, anything like that. Thanks! Chris Burns asks, would you consider reviewing some budget pickups? I've read good things about Planet Tone pickups, but haven't found many videos about them for heavy music. Absolutely, man. I know that I do demo a lot of high dollar gear on the channel, but I think that I have mentioned before that I am basically a massive proponent or a massive supporter of getting really good tones out of low budget gear. And that goes for drums, that goes for guitars, that goes for recording stuff. Basically, I am always trying to figure out how to get the best out of the least expensive gear that I can. I am lucky enough to be in a position where I can afford crazy gear, which is awesome, but at the same time, there is just something super satisfying about plugging a cheap guitar into a cheap amp, into a cheap cab with a cheap overdrive and still getting awesome tones. It's just something that I really enjoy. So yeah, as far as pickups are the one area where I have been disappointed in budget stuff. I remember trying out some of the Guitar Head stuff that you could buy on eBay, and pretty much every pickup that I got from them was pretty muddy and disappointing. And then same with, what was that other site that has the guitars? GFS, their GFS pickups, Guitar Fetish, that's it, yeah, Guitar Fetish. So a lot of people would rant and rave about the pickups that Guitar Fetish had because they were like humbuckers for like 35 bucks, and I tried a few of the pickups from that website and they all just left me wanting. They were all kind of muddy, undefined, nothing that really stood out to me as special in the tone department. So I kind of lost interest in those again, but I mean, it's been probably 5 or 6 years since I've tried anything from that company or Guitar Heads. Planet Tone, I have never heard of them, but if anybody at Planet Tone's watching and you guys want me to review some pickups, hit me up. I would be happy to throw a couple pickups and a guitar and make some demos. I am always trying to find some good budget gear to review for you guys. That way that you guys can get your hands on some affordable gear that sounds good and not break the bank in order to get the tones that you're after. I think that that is generally a goal of everybody who is into guitar gear, is getting a good tone without spending $1 million on all the gear. And honestly, it's usually not necessary, and honestly, it's usually something that's not necessary once you find some cheaper stuff that really works for you. And there's definitely some good budget gear out there. So yes, I am definitely interested in saying definitely 100 more times, and I'm also interested in reviewing some cool budget pickups sometime here in the near future. Would really enjoy doing that. John Winter asks, how often do you think musicians use gear they wouldn't usually gravitate towards for sponsorships or endorsements? You know, man, I don't really know. I really don't know, because I come from the hardcore community where not a lot of bands get endorsements by bigger companies. I know in the early 2000s, Mesa was a little bit more liberal with their endorsements, and ESP Ltd, where, you know, they would hand out free guitars as opposed to discounted guitars and stuff, but that really has died a lot, and that's just because the whole hardcore community, the whole hardcore scene has just shrunk considerably. In the early 90s all the way to the early 2000s, there was a 10-year There was a 10-year period where hardcore and metal was just extremely popular. It was extremely marketable. I would say all the way up until like 2008, 2009 is when things really started to kind of decline. At least in this area it did, but I noticed everywhere there just seemed to be less interest in underground hardcore music. Even the metalcore stuff had pretty much died off by then as well. So when your audience shrinks considerably, brands like Mesa, brands like ESP are gonna see that, and they are going to either stop handing out endorsements, or they're going to be much more selective with what bands that they are endorsing, because now the crowds who are going out to see all these hardcore bands have shrunk dramatically. So just kind of prefacing this all with the fact that I come from a community where most bands are not big enough in order to receive endorsements in the first place. So I don't really know. I don't personally really see bands taking endorsements for gear just so they can get free or discounted stuff. It's just not something that I have encountered all that often. In fact, I don't think I know anybody who is like, yeah, I took an ESP endorsement just to get like discounted stuff. Now, when it comes to bigger bands, that may be a different case altogether, but I don't personally know. And if there's one thing that I don't do on this channel, it is talk out of my ass. I am not going to give you guys an opinion on something that I have no knowledge of. I just think that that is kind of a tasteless thing to do, and I would rather be upfront with you guys and say, I don't know, rather than talk in circles and make up things that make it sound like I know what I'm talking about when people who actually do know what they're talking about or have info on the subject are going to see right through that. So does it happen? I'm sure it does. You know, I'm sure that bands take endorsements just to get free or cheap gear, but again, endorsements are harder to come by and companies don't hand out as much free stuff. It's usually discounted now and you can only get so many discounted guitars a year. At least that's, you know, what I hear from people who are endorsed by Mesa and ESP. Again, I keep referencing those brands because those are the only brands that I really know who endorse people in my circle. Gallagher does artist endorsements as well and may have a really cool announcement coming up sometime in the near future for you guys on that front. Wade Bergen asks, what is your LED light setup? It looks really cool, but isn't too much. Thanks, man. This is basically just a bunch of random LED lighting that I bought. This room that I'm filming all of my videos in was essentially supposed to just be like a video game chill type of room. We have a finished portion of the basement in my house and it was empty for a long time. We never really used it for anything, so I kind of just decided I was gonna turn it into just kind of like a second little living room slash chill area where I could come down in case my girlfriend had people over and I just wanted to be by myself, or in case she was upstairs watching a show and I wanted to come downstairs and play video games, blah, blah, blah. And when I did that, I bought just some LED kind of like mood lighting type things to throw up behind the TV and a couple of LED bulbs. So it's all kind of random stuff. I can put links, or I think I already have links down in the description of these videos. I do have an Amazon affiliate account, so I think that there are links to the bulbs and to the lighting kit that I used. But honestly, everything that you guys see in this room cost me probably 60 bucks. I think the LED strip behind me was $30. The LED strip that's on the floor over here behind the cabs was like 20 bucks, and then the bulbs are dirt cheap and you can control all of those via a wireless remote. So if you guys want to check that out, if you're interested in it, down in the description of this video, you should be able to find those Amazon affiliate links. Honestly, the walls in here are very blank because we just never really got around to decorating this finished portion of the basement, and I wanted something to make the videos look a little bit more interesting, so I just started flipping those lights on when I started filming my YouTube videos down here, and I get a lot of comments on it, so it seems like you guys dig it, and yeah, that's that. Last question comes from John Barber, and this is a good one. He says, to avoid all of this tube anxiety, would solid state be a good alternative? Dude, I have seen so many people say, okay, from here on out, I'm using solid state amps until this all blows over. That way, I don't have to worry about replacing the tubes in my tube amps, blah, blah, blah. I have seen this left and right in all of the Facebook groups, all of these dudes going out and talking about how they're gonna buy solid state amps. And you know what? That's fine. If that's what you wanna do, there's nothing wrong with that. However, I think people, as usual, are overreacting. I think they're being overly dramatic. Like I mentioned in my last FAQ video, most people change their tubes far too often. Most people worry about their tubes failing far too often. And now new production tubes are definitely very finicky and they can fail at any time. So I understand that. So if you don't have a spare tube on hand and you own a tube amp, number one, that's not really a good idea, and I would advise you to get a spare set of power tubes and a couple spare preamp tubes. I'm not telling you to go hoard tubes, but I'm saying you are definitely learning a lesson the hard way right now in how to be prepared if you own a tube amp that requires tubes for possible maintenance. If you ever have a tube amp, you should have spare tubes just in case. But if you do have a tube amp, you don't have any spare tubes on hand at the moment, and of course tubes have, you know, pretty much gone up sky high in price. It seems like you can still get them, but again, with so many people trying to buy them and hoard them now, the prices are through the roof, which is why I advise you guys not to buy tubes unless you absolutely need them. Don't go out there buying and hoarding a whole bunch of tubes. Then yes, having a solid state amp on hand in case your tube amp fails makes a lot of sense. Now, if you're going out to buy a solid state amp, basically to pack your tube amp away because you're not gonna be able to get tubes for it for a little while, just use the tube amp, dude. It's meant to be used, it's meant to be played. And then if a tube fails and you have that solid state amp that you're comfortable with as a backup, then put that out as your main amp, but only if your tube amp fails, because I just don't see the point in stashing a tube amp away before it has actually had an issue. Like, just play the stupid thing, and then if you have an issue, then you can bring out your solid state amp, because what happens if you get a solid state amp and you hate this solid state amp and you end up playing through it for a year strictly on the principle that you don't want to have something happen to your tube amp? Well, you just spent a year playing on an amp that you don't really like all that much to basically try to avoid having an issue with your tube amp that you do like, which may have never actually occurred in the first place. So just think about it a little bit, guys. It's not that serious. If you have a tube amp, play your tube amp, especially if you've got backup tubes. You're not gonna burn through them nearly as quickly as you think you are. And if you don't have backup tubes and you wanna grab a solid state amp as a backup amp, absolutely do that. But again, just keep playing your tube amp until until something happens to it that makes you have to use the solid state amp. Don't just get the solid state amp and play it strictly on the principle of you hoping that nothing happens to your tube amp, because more than likely, nothing's gonna happen to your tube amp, and you're gonna spend a lot of time playing an amp that you may not like nearly as much as the amp that you already have. So, with that being said, guys, that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, leave your comments and your questions for the next FAQ episode down in the comment section, not the description, as I always say. Leave it down in the comment section, and I'll be sure to go down there and look at your questions, try to answer them if I can, and get some stuff for the next episode. If you want to support the channel, as always, my affiliate links are down in the description of this video, including my Sweetwater affiliate link. I also have some new affiliate links from Sonic Cake and from Eargasm, on top of DistroKid and a few others, guys. There's all sorts of ways to support the channel if you want to help me out, if you want to help me fund new gear to review for you guys. And like I said, the Gear Purge post should be up, it should be live on my community section of my YouTube channel, so go over there and see if there's anything that you want to purchase from me. I'll be happy to sell you something to help fund whatever I get next for the channel. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time. I don't know why I'm doing this. Bye.